Today's episode of Python Papi, we're back inside our smart contracts project. Let's have a look at what we're going to be going over today. Today we're back inside our Web3Py favorites module, and we're still doing the what do you call that there? The actual deploy a contract to the EMV section of the module. So we can do some light reading, and then I'm going to show you some things inside of our actual contract. So the first thing we will talk about is the private key and why we should not hard code it ever. The private key is a secret key that is used to sign transactions and prove ownership of an account. Hard coding the private key in our code is not a good idea because it can be easily accessed by anyone who has access to the code. This can lead to the private key being compromised and the account being hacked. Now, instead of hard coding the private key in our code, we should use a secure method to store and retrieve the private key, such as using a hard wallet or a hardware wallet or secure key management service. Or we can use a .env file to store our private key. And we definitely do not want to use a plain text file to store our private key, as this can lead to the private key being compromised and the account being hacked. A plain text file is not a secure way to store sensitive information, and it can be easily accessed by anyone who has access to the file. Basically, plain text means that the file is not encrypted. As of 2024, the number one attack vector in all of Web3 was for hackers to steal private keys. Stolen private keys accounted for 90% of all hacks in Web3, which resulted in billions of dollars being stolen from users. This is why it is important to use a secure method to store and retrieve the private key and not to hard code it in our code. Now that we have talked about the private key, we can talk about the mini promise. First thing we would do before we dive into this is create a file called mini promise. Let's go over here to our actual, I didn't have to close that first. Let's go over here to our contract so I can show you what the mini promise looks like and what it does. Actually, it's just like a note to self or a promise to self, letting us know how we're going to stay on track and refrain from doing and how we're going to operate inside of this contract. So you can see our promise.md file. We're going to click on that. And you can see what we have inside of our promise. And you can see here we promise to ourselves that during the creation of this contract, or as soon as it pops up, I can actually show you what it says. Of course, it takes a little while to pop up while we're running the video and actually trying to do things in the contract at the same time. So it should boot up any second now. Here you go. You can see I promise to never hard code my private key in my code and to always use a secure method to store and retrieve my private key, such as using a hardware wallet or secure key management service. I will always encrypt my private key and I will never store it in a plain text file. I will never share my private key with anyone and I will always keep it safe and secure. Basically, that's what our promise is saying. This is how we're going to operate, and this is how we're going to handle our private key while we're building this small contract. And basically, that's what a promise is. Things that we promise to do, and certain securities we promise to keep while we're actually building this contract. So that's what the promise is there. So basically, that's it. We got past that part. We're going to keep moving forward. Of course, I will keep you posted every step of the way. But for now, this is Python Papi. You guys stay Gucci.